Hey, what's going on, guys? Ben Brewster here at triathletics.com. This video is about the band walkouts at 30 degrees and 90 degrees. So we know the posterior cuff is extremely important in stabilizing the shoulder dynamically as we go overhead. The posterior cuff basically sits on the posterior side of the shoulder, and as we go overhead, those muscles help to depress the shoulder in the shoulder joint and keep it centrated so that it doesn't ride up in the shoulder as we go into layback or overhead press or any sort of overhead motion. We also know that the posterior cuff is extremely important. It needs to be strong in order to stabilize eccentrically and isometrically during the throw. So it's not just an isometric contraction, but at ball release, as soon as the arm transitions from acceleration to deceleration, there's a huge amount of eccentric load placed through the posterior cuff. As the arm shoots from external rotation into internal rotation, one of, if not the fastest movements in all of sports, that shoulder needs to be able to absorb that force. And so this posterior cuff is lengthening extremely quickly and needs to have the appropriate eccentric strength to decelerate the shoulder, or you're going to just get banging, you're going to get rattling around of that humeral head upon decel, you're going to feel like you're slamming your shoulder, or something else along the chain is going to have to pick up the slack, and you're going to get elbow issues, shoulder issues, any number of issues if you don't have adequate posterior cuff strength. So a couple of eccentric exercises that we can do at 30 degrees and 90 degrees. We're just going to use J-bands for this example. Because most of you are going to have access to them. You could use a cable machine. You could use really anything that you've got. So for the first one, it's a band walkout at 30 degrees. We're going to get something to prop under the elbow or shoulder. A rolled up towel, a bar pad, anything like that will work. Basically, you're going to get a better shoulder contraction, better cuff contraction at 30 degrees than right at your side. It's going to give you a little bit of space, give that shoulder a little bit of space to externally rotate. From here, we're going to walk in close enough to the band that there's no tension on it to start. So we're going to take ourselves to our end range. For me, that's my end range at 30 degrees. So I'm going to make sure I get to that point without any resistance on the band. So that's the starting point. From here, I'm going to try to contract from the shoulder itself and hold that position as I walk laterally away from the band. What you don't want to do is compensate through your T-spine. You don't want to compensate with your scap. Be very strict with the position, and we're just controlling the humeral head in the socket via the posterior cuff. Okay, so you're going to feel a little bit of cramping in the back side of your shoulder if you get in this position. As you walk out slowly, you're trying to hold that, trying to hold that, trying to hold that. Eventually you're not going to be able to. Keep trying, keep trying, keep trying, keep trying. That's one rep. Come back in. So you'll see we're lengthening under load that posterior cuff, and we're trying as hard as we can to resist. So this is a very intense posterior cuff strengthening drill. If you're doing this pre-throwing, keep the reps down, especially if you're going to be doing this on a daily basis. If you're just doing this a couple times a week in your lifting routines, you can go a little bit more aggressively here. A few sets, 6 to 8 to 10 reps. Just be aware you're probably going to be sore the next day, so don't go super high reps or high volume on this if you have a high intensity throwing day right after or the next day. So at 30 degrees, that's what it would look like. At 90 degrees, it's the same thing, but it's a little bit harder to kind of stabilize and keep your form crisp the first time you do it. So you have to be really aware of what your elbow and your shoulder are doing. So you're trying to get your elbow in line with the shoulder at 90 degrees and at 90 degrees of elbow flexion. So not in here, not out there, 90 degrees in line with the shoulder. That's your starting position. You should feel like you've wound up the shoulder to its end range of motion. We're going to walk back and let the band pull us down without any compensations to the rib cage or the scap. So we're starting with no resistance at 90. Walk back slow, try to hold it, try to hold it, try to hold it, try to hold it, try to hold it. That's one rep. So again, you can see significantly more eccentric stress than if I just took the band and worked through this. There's basically no eccentric stress in this exercise because I'm just letting the band just flap me back to the start. So because that's how the posterior cuff works in the throw, it works isometrically and eccentrically. We prefer using these types of variations to just concentric variations because it's more specific to how you're going to use those muscles in the throw. If you like this video, give it a like, give it a thumbs up, and let us know if you have any questions.